Hi, I'm Steve Ruth, and this short presentation will review two articles, very recent, very fresh, and also very controversial, articles that we've actually had as part of our reading. And in our flipped classroom approach, I hope you'll not only read them, but listen to my very brief remarks about them, and then be able to talk about them in our class. The first one is called "The End of the University as We Know It" by Nathan Hardin. And his basic theme, just like the second one we're going to be reading, is that there are big changes coming. In fact, he begins the article this way: in 50 years, if not much sooner, half of the roughly 4,500 colleges and universities in the United States will have ceased to exist. That's certainly a way to get attention of an audience. But his basic theme is that the live lecture is going to be replaced by streaming video. Exams and coursework will move to the internet. Now, I don't think any of us doubt that a lot of that is happening already. In fact, a third of the students in the United States college system are taking at least one course online. But a lot of people wonder whether it's going to be that extensive a change, and also whether there'll be some barriers that will stop it. But he says no, and he makes a very interesting point. He says what we're approaching, if this were to happen, is a student golden age. Near universal access to the highest quality of teaching and scholarship at minimal cost. Sounds too good to be true, I know, and maybe it is, but I think it's helpful just to take a look at these, because each one of these articles, it has lots and lots of data, lots of examples, where he'll mention that a lot of MOOCs are already able to be given for credit at a different university. He gives examples of very large numbers of institutions that are already doing that, just for example. So they're backed up by a lot of data. You have to decide whether it's valid or not. He believes that universities of all types, below the very top, will engage in an all-out war of survival. If he's right about this movement toward interventions like MOOCs, then certainly there could be quite a lot of competition. In my articles, I've referred to it as the import-export approach, where the university that is a net importer of astronomy courses will have to pay some other university for the best astronomy course, and if they're a net exporter of, say, econ courses, then there'll be a nice cash flow coming that way. So it does sound a little bit like a war of survival. This author happens to feel that the biggest gains come in what we call today hybrid courses, not just all online, but a combination of online and classroom. And he mentions, as many authors do, the group at Carnegie Mellon that has been investigating these hybrid courses for years, and finds out that when you do introduce the online as well as the some face-to-face, that you can just about double the effectiveness of the results. Finally, he brings up the point that the primary vehicle for university learning someday may be a third-party website, not the university itself. There again, that gets into some very interesting models that are being proposed. There's some companies that are actually doing the entire online project management, as well as some of the teaching for institutions, and just giving the institution a cut of the revenues. So he believes that eventually may be a lot more common. So the bottom line of this article is that a lot of things are going to change, and as he titles it, "The End of the University as We Know It," you'll have to decide whether it's credible from your perspective, but at least it's out there, and I hope you find it interesting to read. The other one is equally challenging, and I guess a little bit even more basic in its approach, but again laden with very interesting facts and references and themes. This is the one called "The MOOC Model, Challenging Traditional Education." I passed it out a few weeks ago, and we'll talk about it in class next time we meet face-to-face. He has three takeaways in this article. The first is a turning point will occur in higher education when MOOC-based program of study leads to a degree from an accredited institution. He feels that is going to be a huge change. He's not talking about for-profits necessarily, or not-for-profits. He says that trend is already beginning to develop. The second takeaway is addressing the quality of the learning experience that MOOCs provide is of primary importance. So nowadays, it isn't nearly enough for the experience to be just online. It has to be online and accompanied by the very best kinds of follow-up techniques, communication techniques for the student to link up with other students, and many, many other opportunities. So he reminds the reader that the quality of this learning experience is very important, and it's not any longer a matter of just throwing out a lot of lectures like this one. It has to be combined with very good learning management system, follow-up, and very good student support capabilities. And finally, I'll just read this to you because it's a very interesting description of the way he views this subject we're discussing in our class. He says, MOOCs represent a post-industrial model of teaching and learning that has the potential to undermine and replace the business model of the institutions that depend on recruiting and retaining students. And those students are in a process of location-bound proprietary forms of campus-based learning, and he feels that this may change that drastically. So here are two articles. I encourage you to read them over, evaluate them, criticize them, and when we get to class, I'd be interested in knowing what your bottom line is. Do you think this is going to take place in 10 years, 20 years, ever? And if it does, what modifications would you make to some of the dire predictions that the authors present? Hope you find that interesting. See you next time.